Right. I'm hoping we are all okay and everyone's ready to go. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. I've got the text message chat box on my other screen over there. If anyone can't hear me, just tap in there and I'll know, but otherwise I think we're ready to go. Right, we're going to talk for about 20 minutes and I'm going to be talking about space as a service and artificial intelligence. What will the impact be of artificial intelligence on space as a service? Now, first off, I'd just like to start with a definition and a caveat. So first off, I just want to define what I think space as a service actually means. So first off, it refers to space that is procured on demand, whether by the hour, the day, the week, the month, or the year, what we typically think of. But secondly, and just as importantly, I think it refers to a workplace, however procured, so this could still be long leasehold workplaces, that provides the spaces and services appropriate for the job to be done of every individual as and when they need it. So we're not just talking about on-demand space here. This applies to any workplace. But the caveat is that I don't think this applies to the entire market, but it does apply to the better end of it. Any company dependent on attracting, retaining, and making productive, high-skilled employers will, I think, become space as a service minded. So it's not the whole market, and I'm not claiming it's the whole market, but in many ways, I think it's the best end of the market. Now, AI is going to impact on space as a service in two ways. It's going to do it directly and indirectly. Now, the indirect impact is all because we are living in the fourth industrial revolution as defined by Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum. We had the first industrial revolution, the steam age, then we had electricity and the combustion engine, then we had the computing age, and now in the fourth industrial revolution, we're in the world of artificial intelligence, robotics, genetics, nanotechnology, 3D printing, etc., etc. But I first of all just want to take you back to the first industrial revolution, because this is Turner's painting Rain, Steam, Speed of 1844. It was painted a few years after the opening of Brunel's Great Western Railway. And I think it gives you some sort of feeling of what the first industrial revolution felt like to people. And I don't think that is dissimilar to now. It feels like the future is rushing towards us, but everything is a bit of a blur. Now, the steam age impacted on Victorian society as dramatically as AI is going to impact on our society. And you get that feeling of palpable excitement in this, because it's incredibly exciting to be living in fast-moving times. But boy, are we living in fast-moving times. This was McKinsey from beginning of last year. Overall, we estimate that 49% of the activities that people are paid to do in the global economy have the potential to be automated by adapting currently demonstrated technology. Not technology of the future, currently demonstrated technology. 49% of everything people do today. And in some ways, if you look at it like this, it's even worse. This is from a book called AI Superpowers, which was published in September this year by Kai-Fu Lee, who's a sort of demigod in the world of AI and is probably the most successful AI venture investor in China. And he wrote, AI algorithms will be to many white-collar workers what tractors were to farmhands, which is quite a statement. A technology that dramatically increases the productivity of each worker and shrinks the total number of employees required. So this is quite dramatic stuff. So what is happening? What is driving this incredible change? Well, of course, it's all down to the speed of technological change. Now, this is Moore's law. You all probably know about Moore's law. This is the hockey stick where nothing happens and then it goes pretty well straight up. Now, this is a logarithmic version of Moore's law, which is essentially 50 years of computer power doubling every 2 years, which is why you have 100,000 chips on transistors on a chip in 1980, 100 million by 2000, and then 10 billion by 2016. 100,000, 100 million, 10 billion in not much time at all. Incredible speed. But there's actually something in computing running much, much faster than Moore's law. If you look at this graphs here, the rather paltry anemic lines at the bottom, that's Moore's law. That's the 100,000, 100 million, 10 billion. What you're looking at above is the speed of increase in the power of GPUs. Now, GPUs are the primary processing units of gaming machines, but they also happen to be peculiarly well suited for AI, and they are developing at an incredibly dramatic rate. In fact, neural network training, which is foundational technology within artificial intelligence, increased in speed 60 times in just 3 years, from 2013 to 2016, with most of that incredible increase in the year 2015 to 2016, 60 times faster in just 3 years. So what? Now, so what is that a number of things that were useless and were not capable of being actually happening in artificial intelligence suddenly became possible. So if you look at computer vision, it went from useless to utility. So the ability of a computer to understand images or videos went from useless to utility in just a few years. When you got 28% error rate in 2010, it's pretty much a useless technology. By 2015, it was better than human level capabilities, from useless to utility. The same, what that means is today, if you so desired, and we perhaps in the West don't desire, but there are other societies that do, such as China, you could face recognize accurately 200,000 people in real time, which is quite extraordinary. So another consequence is that speech recognition also went from useless to utility in a few years. In fact, it went much faster. In 2013, speech recognition had a word error rate, which is the way they monitor these things, of 23%. Pretty useless if 1 in 4 things is wrong. By 2017, it was less than 5%, and 5% is the human level. So what this means is that it's no surprise you suddenly got a new search interface, the Amazon Echo. The only reason this product exists is because all of a sudden it could exist because speech recognition got good enough. Now, beyond perception and communication, the understanding of language, AI has three key capabilities, and you've got to think of all this technology is enabling AI to really move forward incredibly quickly in these areas. So it's incredibly good for understanding knowledge about the world. So aggregating, synthesizing multitudinous, disparate data sets is something AI is very good at. It's very, very good at reasoning. However complicated you think of a if this, then that statement, AI is peculiarly good at it. And it's peculiarly good at planning, so enabling you to set goals and then working out how to achieve them. So if you think of logistics, think of predictive maintenance, demand forecasting, these are things that AI is incredibly good at and getting much, much better at very quickly. So what this means is that all businesses, because a lot of this technology is becoming commoditized very quickly, and with your credit card, you can plug it into Amazon and away you go with the most incredible technologies. All businesses suddenly can exploit 6 new capabilities. So we are able now to automate processes in a way that we couldn't a few years ago. We can understand what is happening in pictures and videos, and we can optimize complex systems, really complex systems that are beyond the ken of man. We can now do that. We can also create content. A lot of the content you're seeing now in news sites, particularly financial sites or sports sites, is actually auto-generated by AIs plugging content into templates. And as we know, we can understand people using language, and we can make predictions. It's very important to understand about predictions. AI is all about predictions. It's all about probability. It's also a different technology to technologies of the past, because historically, with technologies, generally the best thing to do is let the early adopters work on it, spend all their money, make all the mistakes, and when they've worked it all out, just swoop in there, buy them out. AI is a different technology to that. Machine learning, the hints in the title, it's machines that learn, and they have to be trained, and you cannot short step that process. So if you get a lead in AI, you tend to get a bigger lead. and a bigger lead and a bigger lead, and it becomes very difficult for people to catch up. So being a fast follower is difficult in this world. Now, the takeaway from all this, as I see it, is all change. Everything is changing because the fundamental nature of work itself is changing, in the sense that everything structured, repeatable, or predictable, which is those 49% of all tasks referenced by McKinsey, will be automated. And as work changes, so will the workplace. But it might not change in the way you think it is likely to change, because I don't know if you've noticed, but there is something missing from structured, repeatable, predictable, and that is creation. Now, we might not all be as creative as Michelangelo with here at the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome, but humans are peculiarly good at creation. And you cannot make anything structured, repeatable, or predictable until it has been created in the first place. So that's where us humans can't come in. Machines are very, very bad at creation. Humans are very, very good at creation. In fact, Picasso had it absolutely right. He used to say that computers are useless. They can only give you answers. And that's the way to look at all this stuff. The importance of the human is understanding what questions to ask. The computers can only do what we tell them to do or what we ask them to do. So ask wisely. So the way I look at this is any work that is structured, repeatable, or predictable, I like to think is going to be automated, and I like to think of it being old work. It's like, washing machines and dishwashers. You'd have no great desire to wash your own clothes or clean your own dishes anymore. Let the machines do it. So anything that is structured, repeatable, predictable will be automated, and think of that as old work, because new work is what we do. New work is what humans do. New work is about design, imagination, inspiration, creation, empathy. Computers have no empathy. Humans are pretty good at empathy. Some humans are good at empathy. Intuition, innovation, collaboration, social intelligence. These are all the things that humans are good at, and that in a world where anything structured, repeatable, or predictable is going to be automated is the work we need to be doing. Now, if you have an office that has been designed around old work, it is, or it shortly will be, obsolete. The future-proof office has to be designed for new work. And it also has to have the physical characteristics that enable it to be designed for new work. So a lot of office space is going to become obsolete, because new work, the offices we need to be places that catalyze human skills. They need to be places where we can do quiet work, collaborative work, where we can think, rest, learn, podcast, create, where we can do human work. And that's potentially a very different product. So demand is changing of our customers, is changing because technology is changing the work they do. And because of that, supply will follow. Supply always follows demand. Demand and supply, we all know, 101, they fit together. And the supply is all going to be about space as a service. Space as a service is human space. So the other big driver is this is all happening at the same time that there's an ongoing move, generally across society, away from ownership to access, and away from products to services. So you have Netflix for music, for movies, Spotify for music, Airbnb for accommodation, Uber for cars, Deliveroo for food, and shortly, no doubt, as in America, we'll have line bikes for scooting around every time we need to move anywhere up to about 1.5 miles away. These are all things we just have access to. We don't need to own the movies. We don't need to own the music, and etc. We don't need to own a car if we live in town. We just want the service. That's what we want. Why should we think real estate is going to be any different? In 2015, Google published a thing called Workplace 2020, and they said in that, I think very presciently, flexible working will be the defining characteristic of the future workplace. Now, what they also did is they asked what percentage of your staff will be working flexibly by 2018. This was in 2015. And what they found is the bigger the company, with the bigger number of employers, the higher the percentage of flexible working those companies thought they'd be using. So what they were saying with companies that employed more than 6,000 people in 2015, they reckon by 2018, 66%, up from 10% today, would be working flexibly in one way or another. Now, I remember when this came out in 2015 and everyone scoffed at it. They said, no way, it's not going to move from 10% to 66%. And then in March this year, Ming Tiandi, which is a research site coming out of Hong Kong, published this, and it said that 56%, 4% less, so not far off, of Asia's top 200 occupiers are already using flexible workspaces in some capacity, and 91% are considering using them. So it's gone there really, really quickly. Now, I put the Ernest Hemingway quote from a wonderful book called The Sun Also Rises, published in 1926. And there's a character in it who goes bankrupt. And later on, they say to him, well, how did you go bankrupt? And he said, two ways, gradually, then suddenly. It's the hockey stick. And this is what's going to happen in the real estate industry. I don't think we're looking at a linear progression here. We're looking for things suddenly falling off the cliff, if you like, or suddenly going right up. When you can go from 10% to 56% in a few years, and 91% of companies looking at flexible workplaces, you know something very serious is happening. So AI will indirectly impact on space as a service by, first off, by changing the very nature of the work we do and making places much more human-centered. Automating structured, repeatable, predictable work will go. Elvis has left the building. And this will encourage new types of space, new types of human space. And most likely we will use a lot less space, but the space will be much better because we need it to be better to catalyze all the human skills. There's also this changing mindset from products to services and ownership to access. Perhaps you could say that that will kill off the lease. It's not going to kill off the lease for everyone, but it's going to kill off a lot of leases. And space as a service, AI impacts on space as a service because flexible working becomes the defining characteristic. Now, that's the indirect impact. What's the direct impact? Now, smart space as a service workplaces are or will be built on AI. Now, I put this in here, generative design. If you Google Autodesk, generative design, Toronto, you'll see a fantastic video of how they use a software program that does this process called generative design. And essentially you feed in some requirements. You say, I want blah, blah, blah. I want this, 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 then, this, and this. And then it spits out lots of different options. Now, some people have access to great designers to design them great workplaces, but a lot of people don't. I'm saying let them eat cake, because really everyone should be able to have a great workplace. And something like generative design, AI-powered generative design, could make that happen for everyone. Now, AI also makes sense of data, and data enables these smart space as a service workplaces. Hashtag wouldn't that be nice? Because, oops, actually we are not doing very well. If you look at the Liesman Index, where so far they have interviewed more than 400,000 people, out of 400,000 people, only 57% say their workplace enables them to be productive, when an average desk utilization is only circa 40%. Now that really is a double fail. We are not creating great spaces as it stands at the moment. Now the point is, I think a lot of the problem here is that we think in the industry, we think people want an office. Nobody wants an office. They're not interested in an office. What they want is a productive workforce. And AI, I think, can help deliver that en masse, productive workforce en masse. Now, part of the way it's going to do it is because these smart space as a service workplaces are built on data. I've got plus because they're built on other things as well, but they're primarily and fundamentally built on data across three major variables. First, in terms of understanding data about your building, the lighting, noise, temperature, air quality, ventilation, what is happening in real time in the physical building. Then how is your space being used in precise detail? Who is using what? Where are people loitering? Where are they using a lot of? What are they not using? Et cetera, et cetera. And then in my mind, in many ways, understanding about your customers, understanding the absolute job to be done of your customer. what do they need to do during their working day? What are their wants, needs, and desires? And does our space provide them with the services that enable them to do what we need them to do? All of that is very, very amenable to AI. AI can help us, if we can collect this data, AI can help us understand it. So today's workplace data is static, it's disparate, and it's dumb, whereas tomorrow's AI-powered data will be dynamic, integrated, and responsive. And bastardizing the famous General Moltke's of no battle plan survives its first meeting with the enemy, I'm saying that no workplace survives the first meeting with the workforce, but that is how we work in this industry. We design a company, a new workplace, it all looks lovely and beautiful on day one, and then we do nothing. So we build it, but we never measure it, we don't learn from it, the company changes, it becomes less appropriate for their needs, but we don't do any of that. Workplace has to become like software. Build it, measure it, learn from it, iterate. That's where we need to go. So in summation, the really important point here is that you have to marry the human and machine. We've been talking a lot about artificial intelligence and technologies here, but the first input has to be very skilled humans on the ground. Humans who understand what it is that other humans need to do and are able to develop really strong human skills that enable them to help other humans. So you need skilled humans running your spaces. You need real-time quantitative data about noise and ventilation and heating and temperature and air conditioning and all that. And then you need regular qualitative data. You need to understand how your building is being used by whom at a human level. And then on top of all of this, you add AI. And if you put skilled humans together with real-time quantitative objective data and regular qualitative subjective data, add AI to it, that's how you build smart space-as-a-service workplaces, because anything else is just an opinion. We're used to working with an opinion. This enables us to work with facts. So space-as-a-service and artificial intelligence together is fundamentally about creating a great user experience. And in a great user experience, I think, can make 1 + 1 = 3 or even 30. Get the human and the machine, the space-as-a-service, the artificial intelligence and the user experience right, and you can be dramatically better than your competitors. So that's the impact of artificial intelligence on space-as-a-service. Thank you. Right, well, I've gone over three minutes. So I'm wondering, I'm open to questions now. I hope you all managed to hear it. I'm looking at my other screen. If there's anything that I can help anyone with. I know it was a bit of a charge through, but there's quite a lot to cover, and I think it's really important to understand the fundamental driver of technology being that it changes the actual work we do. A lot of people talk about the way we work being the thing that changes, but it's not really the way we work, it's the work we do, and that forces the change after that. Do we think traditional real estate companies will grasp this, or will the tech companies take over the old guard? I think next year could well be the year when we find out the answer to that question. My instinct is that there are a certain number of real estate companies, traditional real estate companies, that will get this, but many won't. The problem for traditional companies is that their whole business models and the way they operate are optimized for a different business model. They are optimized for a product world as opposed to the service world we're going into. And so to get a traditional real estate company in this world and do it well, it needs to change its structure, its organization, its finances, it's incentives, a whole world of things. But what I saw something this morning, which was very interesting. Someone sent me a link to Airbnb have just announced that they're setting up a company to build their own real estate. And they sent me a link to the jobs page of that new company. And it's quite extraordinary because what they're looking for product managers, they're looking for industrial designers, they're looking for innovation managers and all this sort of thing. And they're a construction company. It's a completely different idea about what the jobs to be done of a construction company are. So some will get it, some won't. How do you see flex aggregation potentially in the industry? I think this is really important. There is huge value to be had from building networks. One of the reasons WeWork is so powerful is because they are going hell for leather to build a huge network. And in this world, it works a bit like technology does. In the technology world, essentially you want as many customers as possible and you want to link as many customers as possible. And every time you add a new customer, it actually increases the value of the total product. So I think you will find that there's going to be a number of big outfits like WeWork, and then the smaller outfits, I think they need to start working together to combine, not least of all, to combine their data, because they're going to need to understand, they're going to need to generate enough data to be able to run these artificial intelligence programs on. And I think they're going to need to combine to help protect themselves from the power of the big people. So it's going to be a bit of a barbell. You get the really big ones and smaller ones, but the smaller ones need to group together and try and leverage all their individual skills. What is your view on the future of retail real estate? Short it in quickly. Retail, well, actually, no, it's a bit unfair. Retail, I think, is going to be a complete barbell. There'll be experiential retail at one end, and there'll be cheap and everyday at the other, and there'll be very little in the middle. All the middle bits of retail, I think Mr. Bezos is going to take most of that. So again, I think there's going to be a lot less retail, and it's going to be a lot better because it fundamentally has the same characteristics as this office market, that we do not need a shop to shop. So to get us to go to shops, you need to be much better. So the technology is driving them to be better. Seems like the major problem will be data generating. Buildings aren't ready for that and will go too slow and enable it. What could enhance it? Absolutely. This is a fundamental problem. Most buildings are not able to do any of this. And frankly, not a lot of this is happening yet anyway. I know some people are doing quite a lot of it, but in reality, it's very much early adopter land. I don't quite know what the answer is. I worry about landlords on this. A friend of mine runs a big IoT company, and they said to me that they've actually given up talking to landlords because they can't get any landlords interested in installing IoT, and they're going straight to the corporates. So they're forgetting the landlords, and they're growing like crazy, but they're not dealing with any landlords because they can't get them to do anything. They're going direct to the customer. So again, that takes the landlord away from the relationship. So I think sooner or later, people are just going to have to put their hand in their pocket and cough up. And they're going to have to maybe do trials and start to learn. But if you don't learn, you've really got a problem. Because if you don't learn, and we go on 4 years like this, you're done for, because you're not going to catch up. You have to try and learn as you go along. And the last one, what will this mean for the traditional roles in real estate like leasing and property management? Leasing. I have an inclination that circa half of the market will become flexible in one way or another. It's not necessarily co-working or by the week or by the month, but short term, very flexible. Bigger companies obviously will still lease a lot, although they'll probably lease a lot less. Someone who used to take 80,000 square feet will probably take 40,000 on a long lease, and then use various flexible operations to deal with the rest. So leasing, you need to position yourself correctly for that, because if half your market suddenly doesn't need to lease. The most important thing for the agents is whether people end up going direct to operators who have a strong enough brand. And it's a bit like, think of it like the hotels. You go to some of the, hotels.com and people like that now, and they've managed to steal, if you like, the customer relationship, which drives the hotels mad. That they don't have that direct relationship. They have to go through the likes of hotels.com. And a lot of that is to do with they didn't try hard enough at the right time, and they allowed the hotels.com of the world to tie up their customer. And then once you've lost your customer in that relationship, it gets very hard to bring it back. So, we work pay an awful lot of money to brokers and very high broker fees, but I seriously see them as the broker's enemy, not their friend. In terms of property management, I think property management has the opportunity to go from 0 to hero. At the moment, they have very little competitive advantage, low margins, very little differentiation. When we're in a space as a service world where the user experience becomes the most important point, the most important thing about a building, the creator and the curator of that user experience becomes the most important person. Now, that could be the landlord. Some landlords will manage it. That could be the property manager, or it could be third parties like TOG and WeWork, etc. One of those three is going to own that relationship. The property manager at the moment, I think, is in many ways is in the best position because they are in the buildings all the time. But they are going to have to add a whole range of new services to be able to make the most of that. Sorry, last one. How can we promote faster growth of space as a service demand from corporates? I don't know that you need to really promote faster growth. I think faster growth is coming very, very fast. One of the things about WeWork, and I know we hate always talking non-stop about WeWork, but they're just the biggest fish, so you may as well. The effort in changing the mindset of people about using people like them at a corporate level is benefiting the whole industry. They are making such a big play. What is it? 30% of their business is supposed to be corporates now. They are really, regardless what you think about them, they are doing a great favor to the whole industry because they are advocating very powerfully for corporates to use this sort of space. So I don't think we're going to need to promote faster growth from corporates. I think it's coming very strongly as we speak. And that's everyone, ladies and gentlemen. I think is me. If there are no more questions, I thank you all for participating, and I hope you enjoyed that. And that's the end. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Slumbers. On behalf of Global Proptech Online, we really enjoyed your keynote and hope to see you soon.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone, for participating. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a nice weekend.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.